Namaste.
Sir, namaste.
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 Welcome to another episode of Ayur Talks. This is today. It's a very important day for Ayur Talks because I think we have one of the top experts in the globe on one major area where Ayurveda can contribute to the global cause of management of health of humans. We have Dr. CHERIAN VARGHESE with us, who is the head of non-communicable diseases program of World Health Organization in Geneva. He is also heading the special initiatives of WHO in many areas. So I welcome you, sir, and it is quite a happy moment that I'm able to have a discussion with you in this forum. We, as you know, as are organizing this program to understand why certain things happen and why certain things do not happen in our society, especially related to traditional medicine and how we should move forward. That is the whole idea of Ayur Talks. Ayur Talks is supported by World Ayurveda Foundation, which is an organization supported by Vijnana Bharati. We are happy to work with National Ayurveda Students and Youth Association as well as with the Journal of Ayurveda Integrative Medicine. So, as you might all know, Journal of Ayurveda Integrative Medicine is the most prominent journal which is published by Elsevier in the area of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine across the globe. We are also happy to tell you that throughout our programs of Ayur Talks from last year, we have been supported by our beloved sponsors, Kottakkal Ayurveda Shala and Sri Dhut Papeshwar Limited. We are extremely thankful to them for giving us this support. With this introduction, I would like to ask the first question to Dr. Cherian. Sir, there had been a lot of talk in the past, probably a decade or so, that communicable diseases are going to be moving away, or rather coming into the position of leadership as far as diseases are concerned, and non-communicable diseases are going to come into the area of prominence, and communicable diseases are going to be fading away. I just want to know, like, with this current situation of the pandemic, do you think that is happening? Is it going to be reversed again? Is it going to be communicable diseases more prominent in human healthcare or in a management of human healthcare? Uh, as a world leader in this thought, we would like to know what you think about it.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Geeta Krishnan and Dr. Pavan Kumar and others for giving me this opportunity. It's great to be with you in Ayur Talks. So, Dr. Geeta Krishnan, you have put up a very important question that the world is now struggling with. So in epidemiology, there is a very classic concept called epidemiological transition. The epidemiological transition that we have seen in high-income countries is over 100 years. So they all started with plague and TB and pestilence and all other communicable diseases, essentially, which communicates from people to transmits from people to people. And as living standards improved, water and sanitation improved, antibiotics improved, those diseases came down rapidly in the last 50, 60 years. And then a group of conditions which are called non-communicable diseases, primarily because they are not transmissible, such as heart disease, cancer, other degenerative conditions. Also because of the longevity of the people, they became the important thing. So if you look at 10 causes of death in 1960 or 70, 6 or 7 would be communicable disease. Now, if you look at the WHO has just published the latest global mortality statistics, if you look at 7 or 8 out of the top 10 causes of death, that is the way we look at the epidemiological transition, will be non-communicable diseases. So in a way, it is true that the disease burden as such is shifted from communicable to non-communicable disease. However, as we currently experience the COVID-19 pandemic, it is always possible that emerging and re-emerging infections are still valid, because we had Ebola in Africa, we had MERS and SARS some years back, and now we have SARS-CoV-2, which is the COVID-19. So there is no way of letting up anything. So whether it is maternal child health, road safety, communicable disease, non-communicable disease, which are the four major grouping of causes of death, all of them are important in one part of the world or the other. So the world as such cannot be focusing on just one area. But I think from now on, the world will really be focused on pathogens like viruses, which have the potential to create a pandemic, and pandemic preparedness will become a big part of the global agenda now. So in short, yes, there is an epidemiological transition. The disease burden is moving more towards non-communicable disease, but one cannot let the guard off preventing communicable diseases, and the research in vaccines, pathogen containment, and new research is always needed.
Just before getting into the traditional medicine area specifically, I have a connected question to this. So what do you think government should do in this, and what is WHO doing for supporting this transition, or this confused situation where the world health is looking at, global health is perceiving itself in?
So WHO, as you know, is an intergovernmental organization which is providing technical support to member states governed by the World Health Assembly. So we are not a standalone agency to do something on our own. It is a collective action with the governments of the world. So WHO has been supporting countries depending on the context, whether it is HIV predominant countries where TB is the major issue, non-communicable diseases. So WHO provides countries a need-based support in terms of technical support, guidance, programmatic support, and other areas. In the area of COVID, of course, WHO immediately came in with a whole lot of scientific studies to sort out the pathogen, identify the immediate interventions that are needed, and also vaccines, which is one of the fastest vaccine development. Now there is this talk going on that HIV is another disease which has killed so many people, which is still killing some people, and we still don't have a vaccine. Whereas in COVID, we have a vaccine. Within 1 year, a substantial part of the world's population is getting vaccinated from ground zero. So that has been made possible. At the same time, WHO, as you may have followed in the World Health Assembly, there has been a lot of discussion about pandemic preparedness. The preparedness for a pandemic by a country is in the health system capacity. Of course, there has to be surveillance and other things, but as for example, when you looked at the first wave of COVID-19 this time or last year, it was all people living with non-communicable diseases who died from the pandemic, and people who did not get good control of hypertension or diabetes were the ones to get severe COVID and even succumb to COVID. Which means that the system resilience, which is the most important word I want to use, has to be able to absorb such stress test that is put on the health system, either in terms of communicable disease or in terms of non-communicable disease. So while it is called as strategies for pandemic preparedness, it is actually the preparedness of the health system to absorb any potential outbreaks or the emerging disease burden. And we are also pushing universal health coverage, as you know, which is actually the sort of main platform which will ensure that everybody gets the care that they need.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pavan, could you ask the next question to sir?
Sir, namaste and welcome to this forum of AYUR Talks. Sir, in passing, you mentioned that prevention is a pandemic preparedness, a very important pillar of that. But with prevention, there comes a paradox that if you have effective prevention in place, the disease will not occur at all. So this is a very big conundrum. How to get over that there is this effective traditional medicine for prevention of diseases like COVID. So what is your take on this, sir? How traditional medicine can be used and be uplifted for the evidence part of it? So the second part of the question is, what is actually an evidence and how to harness it?
Thank you, Dr. Pavan Kumar. I think you bring in multiple issues. In my personal view, I wouldn't call any medicine traditional medicine, because all medicine are different branches of medicine. So I don't know whether it may even be a misnomer to call some medicine as traditional medicine and others are not. There is a tradition in everything, even in medical practice, so-called medical practice, there is tradition. So tradition is something else. It is, I think, the medicine alone should not be sort of contained into a box called tradition, and then that also is one challenge. I think we should just call it as another system of medicine. Okay, this is one system of medicine. There is another system of medicine or health or healing or anything, because words are very important, because most of the terminologies in medicine are from the so-called allopathy, where there is things like medicine, disease, and other things were there. Whereas the Indian system of medicine, which I suppose is what is being sort of covered under this box called traditional medicine, has got a slightly different take on many things. Now, you are all the experts in Ayurveda, but Ayurvedam itself is the science of life, which means that is the way that helps people to live healthy. So the fundamental principle of any health program is to help people to live healthy, because that is where it starts. Of course, then once there is an injury or a disease or something, we treat that. But as you rightly said, if a person is able to conduct their life in a manner that they can keep the body and the mind and the spirit as healthy as possible, as unaffected by things as possible, then they are actually much better prepared. It is like our modern day gadgets. If you have a car, if you service it every month, it will be in very good running shape, rather than leaving it and then finally getting broken down and then towing it to a workshop. It is an equivalent biological organism, that our body is a biological organism. We are all biological organisms. So that biological organism needs to be protected from certain toxins, improved in its capacity to function, improved in its capacity to sensory function, in digestion. There are multiple processes going on in our body. So if the Ayurvedic system or the science of life, which is Ayurveda, can help people to stay healthy, naturally that will be protecting that person from a large number of diseases. And if there are many people like that in the society, then the society will be protected. So prevention as such is a critical pillar on which other things are put through. And if this pillar is broken, then it's very difficult to fix something. So my take is that, rather than boxing into traditional medicine and say it is like this and this can be good for prevention, helping people to live healthy is the fundamental issue. Whatever we do, whether it is giving them good food or good yoga practices or good living standards, or good improvement of their overall system capacity, whichever way that can be done, that should be done. And if Ayurveda is able to do that, then certainly we should do that. Then the issue of evidence, which is the most important second part of your question. See, this is actually an evolution. I think if you read journals, because some of the journals go 100 years back in 1950s, 60s, and all that, most of them were more like opinions, and they were published at that time. Now you cannot publish. Now they say, bring me the evidence, bring me the p-value. So it is also the way the system has moved with molecules, with statistical significance of the molecules or on certain biochemical parameters, and so the evidence has been reduced into that narrow lane. There is a molecule, I test the molecule, I have a numerical value on that, and I put a statistical test on that, so that is my evidence. Thank you. So that is a very reductionist approach, as we know. We'll have to really look at how the system evolved over the years. As I said, if you look at 1950s and 60s, old journals in the Lancet, or so-called the top biomedical journals of the day, they had a lot of opinions like this, and many things actually started from opinions and observations and everything. So evidence is a collective synthesis of multiple things. I think that is my main take. Evidence doesn't come from one particular study of two molecules and a p-value. Evidence comes from lived experience, from synthesis of all this information that comes, application of that into the context in which we are living, and then making sure that it has an impact. But I also understand that today's world is slightly biased towards a certain set of thinking called evidence, which actually then needs large randomized trials to avoid bias and then have an objective way, because there is this subjectivity, and objectivity is something that has kept into the scientific world quite a bit. But it is again changing, because now we have a lot of qualitative studies. We are actually thinking a patient's views or a surgeon's views or a physician's views are also important. So it is changing, but your points are very valid. So my final take is that don't try to put it into a box called tradition. It is actually a medical field which can actually have substantial capacity to help people to live healthy, either in terms of prevention or promotion of health, and that evidence should be synthesized appropriate to the context. Maybe there are studies needed, but that is not the only way to do evidence.
Yes, sir. But, how to look for and how to look at evidence? I am asking this from the perspective of health policy makers or administrator. How should they look at and how should they look for, especially the evidence which they don't consider good enough on the scale of hierarchy? So, what do you say, sir, on this?
Yeah, that one thing is that, as I said, everybody seems to look through a filter. So they put a filter of a clinical trial as the ultimate test of evidence, or publication in a particular journal or 2 3 journals as the set of evidence, which may be okay for molecules, but that is not what we are looking at here. So I think that is what one of the realization is, that as I always say, we don't use the same parameters of a car for a train. Both the car and a train will take us from A to B, but the maintenance of the train or the quality of the train, except maybe the speed, all other things are very different inside the train or inside the ship. All of them transfer people from A to B. So similarly, when a person's health condition has to be improved, it has to be seen in different directions, and that is a realization that has to come. And experts like all of you who are working in the Ayurvedic system of medicine, I think we should repeatedly use that rather than calling it traditional medicine. The Ayurvedic system of medicine are the first ones to sort of present it in such a way that it is digestible, understandable, and actionable to the policymakers, which needs maybe a bit more effort. For example, let us say rheumatoid arthritis, a condition where Ayurveda has good impact. How do we present that evidence, and how do we make it into practice? So as I said, whether we like it or not, the world has evolved following the industrialized world, which then colonized the rest of the world and all that. So there's a certain amount of legacy that is out there, and some sort of perceived thinking of certain areas. So one has to live up to those expectations to some extent, but not completely. But there are certain areas like, because most of the people have been maybe developed their thinking, those biomedical pathways, they want to see, okay, there are 5,000 people with rheumatoid arthritis randomized into 2,500 with Ayurvedic medicine, 2,500 with allopathic medicine. What is the impact, and is it significant? That could be one way of saying. The second is the feasibility of that. Okay, so if maybe there is a great molecule which can do something, or steroids which have side effects, but in Ayurvedic medicine you have something else, and then how do we make it applicable in a scientific manner, which is I would always call something called a trust factor. How do we bring up the trust? Because it is the trust that matters. How do I go to a physician, even if the physician has got 6 degrees? If I don't have a trust, I will not go. Sometimes I go to a physician who may not have that many qualifications, but I have a trust in that person. So the system and the policymakers have to build a trust in the Ayurvedic system of medicine. And I think the work that all of you are doing, WHO is also doing, as Dr. Geeta Krishnan is there, in sort of standardizing things, in making it more amenable to everyone who wants to understand this. And then there are pathways. I think the National Ayurvedic Mission in India is a good example. States like Kerala are starting multiple Ayurveda clinics in the state. it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight because we have been traveling in one particular track. So changing the track, going by the train example, if you are in meter gauge, if you want to go to broad gauge, it will take time. Overnight, you cannot put the same rakes onto the other things. So it needs multiple efforts, but I see that it is coming through.
Very true, sir. Well said. Thanks a lot, sir, for your extensive experience. Geetaji.
Yes, thanks, Pavanji. In fact, sir, I want to ask because we need to be very specifically, we need to know very specifically that how should Ayurveda be used by a country like India or Sri Lanka, Nepal, or Mauritius. How should we use Ayurveda in this current system? We have a lot of Ayurvedic doctors, but in effect doesn't seem to be appropriately used within the system. So how do we build that up, and what is the process that you would advise?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Geeta. My thinking is, first of all, you have said Ayurvedic system of medicine, which is good, but then we know that there are people who are just practicing Ayurvedam based on their experience. There are people who have gone into proper Ayurvedic colleges, have done their graduation and postgraduate trainings. There are people who have published in reputed journals in Ayurveda. So, unlike allopathic medicine, there's a bit of a mix here. Allopathic medicine had that mix, I think, about 70, 80 years back. There were people who were not fully trained, half trained. Even I remember there we had something called LMP, LCPS and all that, which was before MBBS became the sort of standard dictum for basic medical qualification. So I think in Ayurvedam, in Ayurvedic medicine, that is one of the first things to fix. There may be people who are just out of practice and out of their parents' practice doing something in which is also called Ayurvedic practice, has to be slightly differentiated from a fully qualified professional Ayurvedic physician. I think that needs to really come into the mind of policymakers. In my view, that is a bit muddled there. There are a lot of people who will do something, anything which is green and anything which is called natural is considered Ayurvedic. It is even used as a promotion. It is used as part of tourism. That is not what we want. So if we want to have Ayurvedic medicine, which is what I'm repeatedly using, then we have to say, okay, these are the prerequisites. A person who has done a basic Ayurvedic medical practice course in a recognized college with a recognized council, what is that person practicing is Ayurvedic medicine. That has to be differentiated by anybody practicing anything which remotely connected to Ayurveda is called Ayurveda. So that separation has to really come in, which, as I said, in medical practice also has come in only in the last 50, 60 years. If you look at 100 years back, so-called modern medicine practice was also big mixed up. In most of our places, we only had compounders, I think, in villages. Even in some parts of the world, it could be still some compounders and dyes and all that. So that transition has to take place in the first place. And so that again, as I said to Dr. Pavan, the trust factor comes in. So the trust in the system is clear. Okay, I'm going to Gita Krishnan. I know that Gita Krishnan has MD Ayurveda. He is very good at this business. He is very good at bone and joint pathology. I have a bone and joint pathology. I'll go to him. So that is to be inbuilt into the system thinking somehow, which means that it has to have that trust factor which comes from these things. Second is to make sure, for example, in the allopathic medicine also, there are specialities. A general practitioner will say, okay, I will only do these things. Anything more than this, I cannot do. I don't see that kind of a clarity in Ayurveda. I think that is needed. What is possible by an MD Ayurveda person who is specializing in a particular area may not be possible by somebody else. So what is general Ayurvedic practice? What is specialized Ayurvedic practice? Who will do that? These things have all evolved out of time. So we don't have to wait for 100 years how allopathic medicine evolved. Maybe we'll need 10 years. And this is the time to start. So one is to have clear prerequisites, a clear set of standard approaches to Ayurveda so that there is trust and people know what is scientific Ayurvedic medicine practice compared to other systems. And second thing is defining the scope of practice, because there's a tendency, oh, this can also be done in Ayurveda, that can also be done, that claim thing. In modern medicine also, in the allopathic medicine also, claim is always problem, and there are lots of checks and balances. But I don't think that level of checks and balances are applicable currently in the Ayurvedic system of medicine. So bringing that, so that unfounded claims are, I think, one of the main reasons to put the specialty down. So if that is taken care of, it will still work. And then it's a constant process. I think we need champions like the World Ayurvedic Foundation is currently doing, because it needs a critical mass of people who build up the specialty, and then it reaches a tipping point, and then it comes into action.
So I know from discussing with you, I know that you had been part of development of big institutions or the other. We would like to know how you would compare it with what should happen in Ayurvedic area, because I know that you have been part of the NCD program in India, and I know that you have been part of the regional cancer center development in Kerala, and and you have been part of many things in WHO also. So tell us, how you think such an institutional development can happen, and how much of an effort should be put into it, like your perspective of how Ayurveda should bring out institutions, how this institution should be built out, and how institutions will become the driving force for Ayurveda to progress.
That is an excellent way to look at things. I was just thinking, why did India become an IT superpower? India became an IT superpower because we had IITs. We put in effort in engineering colleges. A lot of talented Indians could find a way to get into these institutions, come out. Now, if you look at global multinational corporations, most of them are headed by IIT graduates. And how did IITs come up? IITs came up because people systematically developed them into centers of excellence. In fact, Joseph Mundassery, who used to be the Kerala's education minister, used to say that it is not good teachers who bring good students, it is good students who bring good teachers. So it is a question of attracting the right talent, and then sort of matching up with the right guidance. So institution building is critical, whether it is in space program, whether it is in IT program, whether it is in health program, in cancer program, or in Ayurvedic program. So one is, we need to have some eminent institutions which could actually stay out of the ordinary and be able to command. If you look at mental health, I know I was in the India office of WHO, and then when we work with bureaucrats in Nirman Bhavan, they'll say, if it's mental health, can we ask NIMHANS as to what their view is, that where is the equivalent of Ayurveda in such institutions? So that's what I was thinking. So if it is something in cardiology, they'll say, okay, let's ask this Sri Chitra and maybe Jayadeva. Cardiology is very good, but then we can also bring in AIMS department. So it automatically comes into their mind that there are certain departments which have got expertise in certain areas. And how did these things come up? In the last 40, 50 years or 20, 30 years, only many of them have really reached prominence. At least in the institutions or the programs that I were part of, there were people who were fully dedicated to this without looking at other aspects of the work. They were actually looking at the personality or personal gain neutral look at program priorities. How do we bring up this program into a successful program? How will it benefit the people? So I think there is no escape but hard work, as they say. But then the hard work has to be very focused. Group of people have to come together and come up beyond any other regional, institutional, parochial priorities into looking at with a single point agenda, that how do I get best institute for Ayurvedic medicine in my country. And I think with that objective, then they should say, okay, we need, how many MD Ayurveda people have done a master's in biostatistics? Not many. So why don't we say that, okay, at least 1% or 10 people out of every 1,000 people or whatever it is from MD Ayurveda in the major Ayurvedic institutes should do MSc in biostatistics. So that immediately will build in capacity to put up things in the way that a so-called scientific world will accept. How many of them have gone into communication, public health, MBA? If you look at institutions which have grown, uh, most of the institutions that I have been associated with, the directors were so with far-reaching thoughts. They actually send people for training in epidemiology or communication or management or clinical trials. When people were thinking, what is this person trying to do? Why they waste money? But then that critical human capital is the one which is going to build up the institution. So I think in Ayurvedic medicine, this is the right time to do that. Because there are many skill sets that are needed, many skill sets and competencies. Again, in your own work, you have seen how you are trying to bring in Ayurveda into ICD coding, how bringing an essential medicines list for Ayurveda, which needs multiple skills, which needs an idea of pharmacopoeias, what is an essential medicines list, how are diseases classified, what are the parameters of a diagnostic criteria, all that will come in. So I think there is no escape but to sort of build more of that, and then institutions will come up. And once we have institutions, they become the force of change, and they become the engine of change, and then slowly things will happen. So I think this is the right time and the right direction that Ayurvedic medicine is taking. But I think it has to be speeded up because time is not on our side. We cannot say, okay, we will do this now and then we will do nothing. Everything has to go at the same pace.
Just an add-on question, maybe not a simple question, but not so simple an answer. What I want to know is, how do you convince, or what probably all of us want to know is, how do we convince, if we have a good idea, how do we convince the policymaker? What do we do? Because I know that many people go and see the policymakers, from starting from the secretary to the really to the ministry. But why is it not getting transferred into real activities? What is happening? Your advice, sir.
It's tough, but I think many factors have to come together at the same time. One thing is seeing is believing. It is all right to say some good idea, but somewhere it has to start. As most programs in India, if you look at, once we have NIMHANS, then there are institutes of mental health and neuroscience in other states. Once AIMS became a successful brand, then there are AIMS all over the place now. So before, if there was no AIMS, and if somebody else went to the policymaker and say, hey, we want a big all India Institute of Medical Science, they won't even say that, because there is nothing like that in my state. They will say, no, there is nothing like that. So I think we have to have models of care. So I think with the current National Ayurvedic Mission and other thing, Ayush Mission and other things, there should be sustained models of efficient care with some impact to demonstrate in the first place. And that could come up with the various institutions. I think in the state of Kerala, there are Ayurvedic institutions, or you have so many Ayurvedic colleges, College of Ayurveda. These are places where there is substantial talent already. Why don't we do demonstration sites around each Ayurveda college in a defined geographic area, working with the state health ministry to say that, okay, our people are going to put in 1 day a week effort, all our consultants and our students are going to work there in the field. We are going to show you how Ayurvedic medicine can be used for a panchayat or a taluka or something, and say, okay, so we are going to have 2 lakhs people here, 200,000 people. So this is how you do this, and then write it up. And this is how when I was in the ministry, in WHO with the ministry, we wanted to look at a cancer control program in a district. So we developed something called a district cancer control program. How does it work? Or a district mental health program. How does it work? So, and then once it is there, in the first budget, you may not get anything. In the second budget, maybe people will think it's a good idea. They will put a little bit of money. And when there is a national program, they'll say, okay, now we can have 25 district cancer control program. Then they'll say we can have 100 district cancer control programs, or we have 1 AIMS, we can have 20 AIMS hereafter. So that is the way, because policies doesn't happen in a vacuum. Policies happen in a situation which is almost like a natural extension of multiple pieces coming together in the puzzle. So the institutional support, the credibility of that, a demonstration program successful in many places, there is a push from different corners, and then the decision gets made as a process, rather than somebody says, okay, Monday morning I'm going to take a decision, I'm going to start Ayurveda with 200 crore of something like that. It doesn't happen. It actually, into a process. So I think, but then what is important for people in World Ayurveda Foundation and other places is to make sure that these pieces of the puzzle are sorted out, so that then the puzzle becomes clear, and then immediately the picture becomes evident to them.
It's very clear. It is not a short-term process. It is a long-term. It's a long-term game, and if you want to succeed, there should be perseverance, and we should build trust. Thank you so much, sir. Pavanji, please. Next question.
Sir, I will change the focus slightly to media and publications. WHO is in a position in this polarized world which it can take the middle path, what in Ayurveda we call Madhyam Marg, which is a very sensible and pragmatic way to look at things. But in these present days, there is a shrill positioning. On one side, there is extremely pro-Ayurvedic shouting, and on the other hand, it is actually throwing brickbats at Ayurveda. In the media, there is no middle way of sensible talk. So how can we achieve that? Through your experience, can you guide us?
That's a tough one. Dr. Pavan Kumar has all the tough questions, I think. So, Pavanji, I think, as I said in one of the earlier comments, I think it has to be clearly separated as to what is professionally trained Ayurvedic physicians doing Ayurveda compared to anybody doing anything which is similar to Ayurveda. I think this mix-up is one big problem in the media. Even as an ordinary person who looks at media, I get confused that way. And so some wisdom and some knowledge which could be based on practice, I'm not refuting that is also needed, but that cannot be combined. For example, if I'm a allopathy medicine trained doctor, and if somebody is just doing something in allopathy, and if that person says something and I say something, as you say, the media gets thoroughly confused. So as I said, there is a lot of things in the modern medicine system, in the medical council, about false claims, about all these things. We have so many examples in modern medicine where people have deceived the population for long years, showing all sorts of funny medicines, making a lot of money, and then crashing down. That has evolved in modern medicine and in the modern system of communication in the allopathic medicine to some. But in Ayurvedic medicine, I think that mix-up is one reason. Second is, again, what is Ayurvedic practice? Because anything from SARS to COVID to HIV to cancer to mental health to psoriasis to rheumatoid arthritis to a lot of conditions are there. So I think Ayurvedic physicians have to say which are the priorities. So if I'm an oncologist, I wouldn't say that I will be very good at skin diseases or anything, because I'm not good at that. Or I may not have been fully trained, or there are better people who are trained at me in that. So in Ayurveda also, we need to have in Ayurvedic medical practice, these are the clear areas, and that is why I like the work that Dr. Gita Krishnan is doing in WHO in terms of ICD, International Classification of Diseases for Ayurveda. Then we could say these are the disease categories in Ayurveda as per the ICD. When WHO publishes it, as you said, it will have a lot of wide outreach and also credibility. And then we'll say, okay, if for these Ayurvedic diseases, then we look at the essential medicines list in Ayurveda. These are the Ayurvedic medicines to be used, and this is the impact. Then people will think, that's a good idea. I can actually see all the elements of that with clarity, rather than somebody comes and says, oh, I'm a great Ayurvedic physician, I do this, I can do this thing. And then somebody, as you said, somebody will throw bricks at them and somebody will throw flowers at them. As you rightly put it, actually, the current situation, that is not good for anyone, actually. Neither good for Ayurveda medicine, nor good for people who actually trying to help other people. Everybody actually gets affected by that. So I think bringing that clarity is something important. And who will talk about Ayurvedic medicine? It has to be somebody who is actually fully trained professionally in Ayurveda. Such a person only should talk about Ayurveda, because it's not something that can be talked about by anyone. So that perception has to change. That is why I'm consciously not using the word traditional medicine, because then it becomes like it is some tradition, some chanting that we do, or some tradition that we do, and then people sort of bring the level of seriousness and the scientific temper to such a level that it becomes, as you said, a problem in the media. So keep that scientific temper, define what it is. Only people who are fully trained and certified to do that should only speak about that, and then supported by all this great work that India is trying to do with WHO in terms of Ayurveda.
Thanks a lot, sir, for your insightful words. Gitaji.
Yeah, in continuation to probably what Pavanji asked and your answers, sir. My question is, you see, modern medicine did not develop as a silo or like a pillar without connecting to anything else. And it developed along with the society which grew. Now, uh, like how do we do you think that traditional medicine, let us say Ayurveda, should be the development of Ayurveda, is it the only is the responsibility of developing Ayurveda only lying with the Ayurvedic doctors? That's a major problem, because I, as a physician, after coming out of the fifth year in school, people will start asking me, what kind of a research are you doing? Because I have no idea about what research is. When I come out of BAMS course, I had to do something else. But the society expects that Ayurvedic people should do everything for Ayurveda, which in fact for modern medicine is not the case. And it developed along, and step by step, as you said, with the other part of the society, the science coming into it, integrating into it. Your opinion about the way in which Ayurveda should develop integrated in an integrated manner into the society, and how the society should help in Ayurveda to grow further.
Yeah, I'll continue with what I am saying, because we have to avoid the confusion of what is Ayurveda. You rightly said when you came out of BAMS, people asked, what research did you do? You could have done research, but then the person who is asking the question is asking rightly, and that is a key pointer, even if it is one question. That is true, because in that person's mind, it is very confusing. What is this? Because that person said something about Ayurveda, this person said it is very good, this person said they cured some disease which was not curable or something like that. So that is where that question comes. So I think first, as I said, the institutions that are producing Ayurvedic practitioners have to step up their capacity in such a way that also see, modern medicine or allopathic medicine developed over so many years, as you rightly said, and along with big pharmaceutical companies. I think one big difference in my view is that it is pharmaceutical companies and their profit-oriented research is what filling the global science. It is not exactly the appropriate research that is wanted. Whichever research which is actually good for profit is the one. Of course, some of them have an impact on disease also, and then after some time that becomes the norm, and then it becomes like that, and then it is difficult to question. Whereas Ayurvedic medicine has not reached that level. There may not be big pharma who want to make multi-billion-dollar profit out of Ayurvedic medicine. If it was there, we won't even be sitting and talking like this. There will be thousands of publications out of clinical trials in Ayurveda by the big pharma giants of the world, and they would have influenced the journals, or the journals would have preferentially published papers with multiple thousands of people under trial and all that. So all that what we see is happening, and that is not where Ayurvedic medicine has been. And it's a huge divide, because one train is a fast train, the other one is actually building the tracks. So that is the way I would think. But the one which is building the tracks can actually do it better, because it can actually see the other train and see what are the problems there. So I think this train has to be then developed in a new concept, based on equity, based on participation of people, based on the strong foundation of prevention, based on science, which is lived experience and synthesized experience, and bring it up. But for that, there has to be institutions, and there has to be more of people like all of you who have to get that done.
So a connected question, as a tail of the previous question. What is your suggestion for Ayurveda and modern medicine to work together, or allopathy to work together? I don't want to call it modern medicine, because all sciences are modern, but I want to call it allopathy and Ayurveda to work, because allopathy is the main system across the globe right now, and Ayurveda is a very prevalently available health system within the country, especially within the Southeast Asian region. So how do we work together to create a new Southeast Asian model, or at least an Indian model of healthcare, which will be beneficial for everyone? We could probably take 25 years to reach it, but how do we start and what do we aim for?
I was thinking of the experience in China when I used to work for the WHO Western Pacific region. As you know very well, the Chinese system of medicine is very well integrated into the modern medicine systems in China. So if you get into a health facility in China, you always have an option of turning to the right to go to the Chinese system of medicine and turning to left to go to the allopathic system of medicine, and there will be cross connections also. So that is something that at least primary healthcare onwards, India could consider, because there are many conditions which are not in the full control of allopathic medicine. I don't think there is an answer to every ailment in allopathic medicine, and may not be in Ayurvedic medicine also, but Ayurvedic medicine can also contribute significantly. Working together, it can make a lot of difference. So if you take from prevention up to palliation, which is symptom relief, at every place both agencies can do. So if allopathy is doing vaccination in childhood, then Ayurvedic physicians could provide guidance to children to eat healthy and to learn to be physically active, and then provide whatever Ayurvedic interventions are needed, and then that continues into early disease areas also. Ayurvedic physicians could cover a lot of, take conditions like high blood pressure. Almost 1/4 of Indians have high blood pressure. That means 1/4 of the adult means every 1 in 4 person that you see has got high blood pressure. No system which is currently there is able to take care of that. So we need a massive army of people. And then we'll have to bring in the Ayurvedic system of medicine in such a way and again, even in allopathic medicine, we are so clear that protocol-based management is so important. So we have to bring that level of clarity into the management systems of Ayurvedic medicine, so that there is protocol-based management. Certain parameters can be looked, maybe if it is blood pressure or something, that can be used as indicators across the board. And then even during disease times, I know that you have the studies from Dr. Prabhakaran and others about the importance of cardiac rehabilitation after cardiac procedures through yoga and other things. And then going into a large number of orthopedic and rheumatic conditions where there will be predominantly Ayurvedic medicine can take the role. And then into long-term care, which is so critical because every society is aging. Even the Indian society is aging very fast. So we'll have a lot of people who are to be taken care of in the older age groups. And again, Ayurveda could come in. So I think it is a track which is coming together, and in some places it moves still towards one and towards one, but again it goes together. So I think that is possible. And again, one important thing is that it has to be highly regulated, because anybody doing everything related to so-called Ayurveda is again, I think, is one of the fundamental issues. If that is taken out, so if BAMS and MBBS practitioners can practice together with conversation to each other, I think that will really work. And that sort of thing, I think there was this plan, I think there is a plan to have mid-level health providers in the health and welfare centers, wellness centers, which could be people who are passed out from Ayush systems of medicine. Let me be very frank and honest, but immediate perception is, oh, who is that? What are they going to do? Are they going to mess up the system? So that trust has to change. That's what I'm saying. That trust factor will change when they say, oh, no, that is actually people who have actually studied this particular course. They have this degree and they have this capacity, and then that becomes possible. So I think, and in the long run, as we see in these high-income countries, look at the level of care dependency they have in older people. And no amount of medical colleges can do that. So it has to have systems of medicines like Ayurvedic medicine, which is actually also done much closer to the people, because that is what the modern medicine is trying to achieve now, having community level workers and this, that. But in Ayurvedic medicine, that is the norm rather than an exception.
Thank you, sir. Pavanji, can you ask the next question? Pavanji? Okay. So I think I have another.
Sir, I would like to bring in a question from one of our learned audience. Dr. Sanjay Jan has pertinently asked, does Ayurveda also needs to go on the way of a reductionist approach to be successful? The strength of Ayurveda, as we all know, is a holistic thought, holistic approach towards taking care. So, what do you say, sir? It is a very basic question.
It's
So
fundamental.
are there any frameworks in place?
I would think it needs both. In certain areas, it has to be reductionist to get that specificity. But even even allopathic medicine, which is now thinking, for example, we are actually thinking of multi-morbidity. Because if you take a person these days, a middle-aged person who is slightly obese, you will see that the person has high blood pressure, high blood glucose or diabetes, high cholesterol or lipids problems, maybe high uric acid, some abnormalities in kidney function. So the approach in allopathic medicine, which classically has been reductionist to the core, is to be integrated. Whereas Ayurveda started with integrated approach, seeing the person as a whole rather than being seen as one organ. So that has to be retained. Ayurveda does not have to be reductionist to be successful, because one of the successes of Ayurvedic medicine is the integrated approach. But then one should be able to explain what are the features that we do, because we cannot cover up the need for explaining something which is needed for trust building by saying no, it's okay, we just do the integrated approach. The approach can be integrated, but I think the underlying research has to need some amount of reductionism there.
Sir, are there any frameworks in place to exactly be implemented in the all over the countries? I'm talking of a broader way. How Ayurveda can help other countries also. In India, it is well entrenched. So we need not go to the grass level to explain what Ayurvedic tenets say as Dinacharya or Rutucharya. So are there any frameworks for the conventional medicine which can be replicated in case of Ayurveda?
In allopathic medicine, see, allopathic medicine is now struggling because allopathic medicine in the last 50, 60 years of its development became distant from the society, and is made to believe like, okay, if I have a problem, then you respond to that, rather than I'm trying to help you to stay healthy. So then the health promotion came in, the Ottawa Charter and all other things, and then they said that people should be equipped, and then the whole wording like health literacy and all are. So modern medicine actually learning all these things which were there in Ayurveda already, because this Dinacharya and all that is nothing but health literacy. So when you call health literacy and it comes in the health promotion journal of the world, it is seen differently. So I think that has to be changed, and then that social, I think we have to socialize the idea. We have to socialize the idea in such a way that it becomes relevant. I think one thing that I see is how yoga got socialized. It's so fast it got socialized in the last 5-6 years. And you go to everybody, I see many people walking with a rolled up mat all the time here. Then I think, hey, what is this? Are they going to the market? No, they are actually going for a yoga. So if such things could happen so fast, that amount of socialization is needed to people to believe in that, and appropriate provision. So if you look at high income countries, there are a lot of practices called chiropractor, podiatry, all sorts of things which are not really the hardcore modern medicine. Chiropractor and all is other things, but they all have their own councils, their own practice. More allopathic medicine people refer them there is no problem. But again, a chiropractor is not just somebody comes and says CHERIAN VARGHESE chiropractor. No, they also go through a certain training. They also have a certain council. They also have these things. So my repeated thing coming back to is that we need to sort of standardize, organize, professionalize, systematize the system of care in Ayurvedic medicine, and then provide it in such a way and in an applicable manner with trust building and societal support going on.
Excellent, sir. Very nice. So, take home message for me at least is the word trust. That trust building should come in. Gitaji, we have just
No, so sir, one small question again. So recently, I know that and we are all proud at WHO that you had been at the helm of coming out with a package for non-communicable diseases interventions, which is in short form called as PEN, and it also came out as an app, mobile app, and I'm actually trying to learn a lot from you because I'm also trying to develop the M Yoga app for WHO. So, like, when could Ayurveda imagine to have an app like that? And then where should we start? We don't have that kind of a information in terms of published literature to come out with what you have right now in pen. But where should we start? Should we wait till we reach the stage of evidence where you have started with pen, or we start earlier? When we start building up?
Okay, thank you for bringing the issue of pen, which is actually a good idea that we thought of packaging, because there are multiple interventions into something. Of course, being from WHO, it has to be based on evidence-based, so that is the evidence base that you're bringing in. But I would think in Ayurvedic medical practice, if we have health and wellness centers which are going to provide Ayurvedic medical practice, you could make a similar thing. We could say, okay, so these are the 10 conditions in every primary care or health and wellness center or the Ayurveda Kendra that is being planned in some states. So it is already possible, because in the Indian system, in the Ayurvedic system of medicine, in professional colleges that you are all studying, certain things which are already there in textbooks. So even in a pen, even if there is no immediate guideline that was available for management of hypertension, we will say no, hypertension has to be managed. This is the diagnostic criteria. Anybody with this condition should be given a lifestyle modification. If not, they should be given pharmacological treatment. So that level of detail can go into an app even today in India in Ayurvedic medicine. And I think it's a good idea to have an Ayurvedic package, Ayurvedic interventions in Ayurvedic medicine package for primary care. And that again is a good way, including in answering Dr. Pawan's question of how do we make sure that this reaches people, what is the model. And these are the kind of model. You see, there was something called IMCA a long time back, integrated management of childhood illnesses. It became so powerful, and if you go to most of African countries in many parts of the world, that actually popularized the whole concept of care of children. And it started with symptoms of a child coming with fever, child coming with discharge from the ear, child coming from diarrhea, and then say, okay, then do this, if this is do this, like that. And such things are quite possible in Ayurveda right now. So we don't have to really wait for everything to have a p-value, but p-values are important. It could be created as we go on, but there is lots that can be done today with what we know.
Thank you so much, sir, because I now we understand that we need to start with what we have, and and start slowly building. We need to build institutions, we need to build trust, we need to work, and we need to slowly build up with evidence, with p-value, and sometimes without p-value also. Thank you so much for your insightful advices and and suggestions. And from all of our side, including our beloved sponsors, Sri Dhut Papeshwar as well as Kottakkal, and from the side of World Ayurveda Foundation, Journal of Ayurveda Integrative Medicine, and National Ayurveda Students and Youth Association, and Vijnana Bharati, we thank you for being here. And I would also like to thank you on behalf of all our beloved participants who had been listening to you keenly, and all those people who will be listening to you again in the coming months, because we are going to put this up in the YouTube for forever, and this will be a very important discussion that we had. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot, sir. Absolutely true words, sir. Gitaji, one of the best sessions. Zabardast learning experience, sir. Lots of insight. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure interacting with you, and I am also learning a lot. In fact, each of these interaction makes you think when you talk. So I think that is also a learning process. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to learn. and let us wish success for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.